Welcome to Sat Chats, the Bitcoin podcast where we chat about sats. Sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, the same way pennies are the smallest part of a dollar. With Sat Chats, we are building the world's biggest Bitcoin welcome center to serve as your gateway to generational wealth. So if you're brand new to Bitcoin, we want to chat about sats with you. Head to satchats.com to grab your slot in the studio today. I'm your host, Stuart Bitcoin Maxi, who wears prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from my Bitcoin laser eyes.
And I'm your co-host, Chris, founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, smash buyer, resident smash buyer. Smash that subscribe button just like I smash buy Bitcoin every time my wife allows me to. And if you do that, you will be entered to win 1 million sats, courtesy of Sat Chats, okay? As long as you are one of our first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, you got about 300 slots left, so I would suggest you do that now. Also, once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we will launch a live Friday show on YouTube, and it is going to be the place to be.
We're also on the road to number 99. Kristen, my wife,
Ooh, the beloved.
I'm training every day here to make myself fit for that conversation because I want her to let me smash all the Bitcoin I can possibly smash.
Yeah.
Today we've got Jeff Booth here in the studio. And if you want to talk about training with a level 99 expert who's maxed out everything that can be maxed out, who can see, this guy can see the label on the outside of the jar, okay? He's going to help us train big time. Jeff is part of my Bitcoin story, and I can remember exactly where I was walking my dog, listening to an episode of Coin Stories with Natalie Brunell, when Jeff's deflationary thing finally clicked for me, and I was like, oh!
I remember that too. I had the same experience.
I was like, oh my God, it's the natural state of the market's deflationary. I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, it blew my mind. And it blew number 32 Lou Cola's mind as well. He was the first Satillionaire to ever sign up to come on the show after listening to it. And Jeff Booth was a big part of his story too.
Yeah.
So Jeff, is a big heavy over at Ego Death Capital, which is, I believe, like a Bitcoin-centric investment type situation.
Yeah.
And he also wrote The Price of Tomorrow, which is a big, heavy book. And it goes into detail on that deflationary business. So we're going to get Jeff's Bitcoin story here today.
It's so funny you mentioned that so many people, James Lavish, who's I'm sure you know, become a really good friend of mine. He said the same thing. Michael Saylor said the same thing. Like years ago, that thing, that the natural state of the free market is deflation, was the thing that unlocked. Oh my God, it just changes everything. And so lots of friends in this industry, and lots of people that I massively respect in this industry. My background, technology entrepreneur, largely entrepreneur. That I was early on the internet. I understood what the internet was going to turn into, and built businesses on the internet, invested in businesses on the internet, and in a similar way, and that kind of positioned me to also understand Bitcoin from a protocol example, and understand what it was going to do, where it was going. But largely, I would just say, an entrepreneur, made a lot of mistakes, by building businesses. You just before we started recording, you said the hardest thing is starting. When you're an entrepreneur and you have an idea, a vision for the future that is going to help people make their lives better, the hardest thing is starting, because you're jumping into the deep end and you're unsure exactly how that's going to play out, similar to your business, what you're doing. And if you help other people, your business expands. And so what you're doing is exactly the same thing as any entrepreneur does. And the more people you help, the better the business is ultimately what ends up happening, and you learn a lot along the way. That is tied to the very same thing we're talking about, because every business in the free market has to compete with what was there before and has to provide more value than what was there before. So you have a global competition of people trying to provide more value, and we use the things that provide more value. And the output of what I just described has to be deflation. And so that's what I explored in my book. And so while I was doing that, making lots of mistakes, but also doing well in my businesses and investing in businesses, from that process, I couldn't understand why. So my Bitcoin journey goes into, I couldn't understand why prices weren't falling if that was the process the entire world uses to create more value. Essentially what we are, as humans, is we are abundance making machines out of scarcity. Right? Anything scarce creates margin because it's stuck, and the business that's creating that creates margin opportunity, and entrepreneurs attack it in tons of different ways to remove the scarcity and provide us value. We've always lived like that. And so I couldn't understand why prices weren't falling broadly, even in the underlying technology that we were building inside the technology companies was becoming free. Right? We would spend $5 million on something, and 5 years later, the technology was that $5 million, you might as well burnt it because to build the same technology better was literally free. And that technology was everywhere. It wasn't just in my business. It was an underlying structure that was also in energy production and mining production. It was everywhere. It wasn't just in technology companies. It was in every part of every industry that made up housing. So house prices and products in housing should be falling. I couldn't understand why it wasn't. And so I chased it to the ground and understood how our monetary system was built the other way. It was built on inflation, and most people believed that you had to have inflation for a productive economy, which didn't make a lot of sense. Like, why do people believe that? We could go into that, but and so as I chased that down to the ground, for me it was, and I want to back up. I held a little bit of Bitcoin before that in 2017, but more of a, I'm interested in this, curious about it, rather than as deep as deep as I am now. And through the process of writing that book, even before the book was launched, it was the same thing that you said that my idea did to you. It did to me. There is no resolve to this problem. It's a structural problem, and there is no resolve to the problem, that structural problem, from the system creating the problem. And that's going to mean, that's going to mean all of these things from the system. It's going to get more and more chaotic as more and more people divide against themselves into that system. And it also means if Bitcoins could stay decentralized and secure, it resolves that paradox. It's a bridge. It's a transition from one system to another. But how hard that would be to understand. That's why I wrote the book.
And that's just like number 46 Draco says, you can't read the label from inside the jar. And I was inside the jar trying to understand Bitcoin, and your deflationary thing that I ejected out of the jar. I was out there for good. And I looked and I was like, oh my gosh. And I could see the label. I was like, this is insane. And the value of Bitcoin too, because I think on that episode with Natalie Brunel, you were kind of talking about how each individual Bitcoin's worth like $44 million today, or something along those lines, where if you take Michael Saylor's 900 trillion divided by 21 million, then it's worth 44 million. But by the time we get to that moment, the world economy won't be 900 trillion. It'll be some odd quadrillion. And I just like, oh my gosh, like in order to provide for my family in a system that is busted, and to make sure my kids are okay, and to make sure my grandkids are okay, and my great grandkids, I need to quit buying these dumb packs of Magic the Gathering cards from the Target checkout line, because they went from $4 pre-pandemic to like $8. and I love the game, but I can buy singles cheaply online. And I need to take that. I need to take those $8. I need to stack some sats because 8,000 sats today, is $8. Okay. But my great grandkid, like, what are those sats going to mean to him? Sheesh.
Well,
so just in quick, that 44 million, if you divided the balance sheet by Bitcoin, that's only part of the story, right? So the other part of the story, and perhaps more important, is that and when it's not $44 million in fiat pieces of paper, it's $44 million of purchasing power. And the only thing that's required for that to get there is Bitcoin stays decentralized and secure. So the only thing you should care about if you're going down your Bitcoin journey is, why would Bitcoin stay decentralized and secure? What would be the risks for it becoming centralized or insecure? And am I comfortable with those risks and understanding that? Once you are there, now I know for people first listening to this, they might not be there yet, and they might assume all these risks. I've spent a lot of time, and I am comfortable then that this is going to stay decentralized and secure forever. Right. So then you would just weight your probabilities on that. So that's the one thing, that's the purchasing power of today's Bitcoin. But the other thing that's probably more important is it imposes the first global free market. It imposes, it's not negotiating. It's the first global free market. So relative to that purchasing power today, all prices will fall forever. So that amount of Bitcoin is effectively infinite in tomorrow's dollars on the global free market, because all of the productivity gains that we have to compete for to provide other people value moves into that, and prices fall forever. So it's the exact opposite system that we live in today, where prices rise forever unnaturally.
So before your episode with Natalie Brunel, and we've referred to that many times now, but because it was so foundational for me, I understood inflation. I understood even, the central bank conundrum that we find ourselves in, that started in the early 1900s, and, the future of where it seems like the central banks are trying to take the world with central bank digital currency. And it just feels like this small group of elite bankers, I don't even know what you call them, are slowly huddling around the rest of us. And before I listened to your episode, I didn't know how to feel about that, except for a little bit down and depressed about the state of the world. But once I was better able to articulate the problem through the comparison of deflationary versus inflationary, I was better able to understand the solution. And that turned me from maybe pessimistic to optimistic about the future, because now I have something to latch onto as the solution. And I realize how important it is, because I understand the gravity of the problem.
So I love that you just said that. So I've been in this space for quite some time now, as you know, and been talking about this for a long time. But I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with emotion sometimes where I get what I'm about to say. So I've had people come up to me at conferences. I had one person in a conference in California come up to me, and they wanted to meet me. They brought their wife and 3-month-old child, and said, "This exists because of you," and it's not because of me, but they saw they were the same as they were living in this. The world's ugly. I'm yelling. I'm giving it more and more energy, and they were just completely. They didn't know what to do, and they saw they saw one of my podcasts, one of my early podcasts, and they went, "Wow, that's true, right? That's the world that we should live in." And they started acquiring Bitcoin, and they started spending. But it wasn't just the Bitcoin. It wasn't just changing their life like you're doing for many other people, right? It wasn't just that their value of the purchasing couldn't go down. They were in the first now global free market, and they were spending more of their energy in it. And he said it so changed his life that's why, like, he was just a mad human being, right? And wasn't meeting people in kind of that energy, and then met his wife out of that energy in their life, and now wanted to have kids and wanted to see like a beautiful world. He says so it so changed him and in his view of the world, and that just kind of plays on. Had other people in the UK come to me at a conference that were the homeless living in a van, and they started 5-6 years ago spending their coffee money. Instead of buying coffee, they bought Bitcoin every day. Not a lot, but a little, just exactly what you're doing, and it completely changed their life. And so I see these stories all the time, out of people just realizing that I can get out of this chaos just by moving my time into the other system, and it's so powerful to watch. But again, this is the way the world should work, and I think it actually does work. If you meet people where they are, who they are, what you'll find is beautiful people everywhere. And then as people understand that they have that power, they have their unique fractal of what they're a genius in, and they have the power to be able to contribute to other people. They do the same. And so that's and you know this because you guys are you're doing it. You're in Bitcoin and doing it. And why it feels so positive is because Bitcoin, while it's competitive, right? So building a business in a free market is competitive. You're competing with the world to provide more value to other people. And you only win if you provide more value than anyone else. And then, and so it's massively competitive, but it's also cooperative because everybody wins through that exchange. Everybody, even if you didn't. So other people are contributing to your benefit, even if you're not using what they use.
And you're saying that's unique to Bitcoin because competition in the fiat system is destructive. Competition in the Bitcoin system is constructive.
Yeah, so let's go probably up a level. So we've always lived in a zero-sum game. Somebody had to lose for us to win. And we didn't realize it was a zero-sum game, but that's the way humanity's always evolved, right? Through essentially, if you were a bigger country and you had a bigger war machine, you would enslave others and steal their natural resources. So they had really low labor and you could exploit them. And inside that country that was winning for a time, you could say if it was Rome, you could say if it was the sun never sets on the British Empire. If you were inside, if you were the top of that power control structure based on a global zero-sum game, you wouldn't know it because it would seem like you were winning while other humans were losing. But you wouldn't. But you would, for your perspective, you would be winning until it got worse and worse and worse, and that caused global war, right? And and the board gets shaken down, and then the new winner comes up and does the same thing. In fact, if you said the sun never sets on the British Empire, and this kind of the discovery or founding of U.S., that was the same game, and then the Constitution enshround individual rights and freedoms, and the free market is much more productive than a controlled market. So a lot of the people left Europe to go into the chaos, the uncharted territory, and bring all of their ideas, which created the U.S. empire, which then got co-opted by banking, right, and the Federal Reserve to exploit other people around the world. I don't know if each person knows that that's exploitation, but actually probably most people don't. But it's still based on a zero-sum game. And then as you go further and further on that zero-sum game, what happens in society is, because it's built on a structure of inflation or manipulation, right? So the free market is deflationary. The natural state of the free market is deflationary. So anything opposite is a control structure that has to centralize. And as you're in that control structure, It's easy for a politician to blame some other group within your country for your pain. And we always bite. Throughout history, we always bite. It's those people's fault. But then because it can't be resolved from that zero-sum game, you have to create a bigger enemy outside your borders. And then we bite on that too. And we go to war to reset this. And then we kill millions of people around the world. We build institutions, say, let's not forget, we'll never do that again. And it starts over again. So that's the entire history of us through a monetary system that demands us to do this and divide. What Bitcoin completely changes that paradigm, changes it forever, because if it can't be co-opted, if it stays decentralized and secure, then no matter what you're doing measuring this system is the first global free market that has ever existed, and it doesn't care about politics. It doesn't care about those people or those people. It doesn't care if you want to run tariffs. It doesn't care if you want to do print $10 trillion and debase everybody. It doesn't care about any of those things. Every 10 minutes, there's a new block that's consensus by all of the nodes that keep this decentralized and secure, and it audits that block or that time chain every 10 minutes. And that protocol is bounded by energy. So it's imposing the first global free market that's ever existed.
So when you say imposing the first global free market, and you mentioned it a little bit just right there, hey, basically, they talk about how the honey badger,
Yep.
Bitcoin's like the money badger. Bitcoin does not care, right? No matter what you do inside the borders of your friendly local nation state, Bitcoin continues to do Bitcoin. No matter which wars, natural disasters, monetary policies, ups, downs, changes in leaderships, none of it is material to Bitcoin. Is that what you mean by imposing the first free? Yes?
Yes, it's more than that too. So that's just even as a store of value. That's what it's doing, but because it's a protocol, and protocols are winner take all. So a protocol is like the internet, and most people think in technologies that are winner take most. Protocols are winner take all. You have a choice to be on the internet or off the internet. North Korea bans all their citizens from the internet. You can look at the output of their society because of that. It's a complete control system. Others, you on or off. Protocols are winner take all. And the other thing is protocols come in layers and build more and more functionality in layers. So the base layer of the internet, I'm going to simplify it just because it's gone through a bunch of iterations, but open protocols. That open protocol was built by DARPA to protect communications in a nuclear holocaust. And the base layer, built in the late 60s, eventually turned into TCP/IP. But that base layer was built in the late 60s. And then through iteration on top of it, added more and more functionality until Tim Berners-Lee created HTTP on the fourth layer in 1989. All of what we're doing right now is on that structure. What your iPhone does is on top of that structure. What Amazon does is on top of that structure. All of the AI that we talk about today is on top of that structure. What's happening in Bitcoin is you have a new base protocol, like a new internet being built that's coming in layers, and it's bounded by energy. So the system we're in is not bounded by energy. It's bounded by pieces of paper and politics. Who controls what? This is bounded by energy, and it can't be changed. So you're building a parallel internet on top of this that's adding more and more functionality, and that network protocol will be everything. It will literally be everything. So it's not just that people are thinking it's just a store of value today. It will be how you pay people. It will be everything else too. There'll be an entire ecosystem built on top of it. In time, similar to how the internet. Now, just for people who haven't really gone into how the internet formed, all of the same battles that you think they're playing out in Bitcoin were happening as the internet was being formed too. There were people that thought, I have my own private internet that is going to be different than these, and more people are going to use mine, right? And you had all of these competing control mechanisms to try to create their own, because there was so much benefit if you could, but the open protocol wins. So that's what's happening today. That's what's happening, and that's why things like Nostr integrated to Bitcoin, and you have a communication channel that's outside the centrally controlled communication channel that's turning into not just a communication channel. It'll turn into a whole bunch of other things as people build more value there. You're building with, whether it's Lightning and payments, whether it's Liquid and payments, where you're building all of these layers of technology on top of Bitcoin that add more value to all participants in that ecosystem.
You're saying we're going to be surfing the web on top of Bitcoin?
Yep.
What? 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 Whoa! Can I have that now? What?
So funny thing is, you are right now if you're on Nostr. Are you guys on Nostr?
I think we have a note to create a Nostr account. I think we might have created one just as a side effect of opening a Lightning channel on that Albi hub, but we're definitely not where we need to be on that platform.
We're not. Rigorous honesty here.
Yeah. So get on, and again, this is first time for people. You guys are further along, but you should get on it, spend time on it, and then tag me in it, and I'll send you zaps in it. And zaps are like, so the zaps I send around in Nostr today, might buy coffees today, will buy cars tomorrow.
Coffees today, cars tomorrow. Okay.
See.
Wow. Okay. A lot to treat here. What were you going to say?
Yeah. So can you just kind of, basic question. What's the biggest threat that you see to Bitcoin's decentralization? And what's the biggest threat that you see to Bitcoin's security? Because like you said, you've spent a lot of time on both. I know that you're confident that Bitcoin's going to persevere, but it would be helpful, I think, for our audience to say what kind of rises to the top in your mind.
So there's only two in my mind, and they're both. I won't be able to do enough work in this podcast to be able to tell you why. So I'll go at a high level, but the two are this. The first one is a social attack on Bitcoin through most people thinking that Bitcoin is only a store of value and not a currency. So if you're not using it as a currency too, so today you could buy Bitcoin, you could spend in Bitcoin, and then you could replace your Bitcoin. So why wouldn't you do that, right? And so a lot of people say, I'd never spend my Bitcoin, right? But if you could just if you could spend and replace, why wouldn't you do that? Because if you're saying I would never spend your Bitcoin, here's what you don't know that you're doing. You're centralizing Bitcoin. Because what it means is everybody has to transact in the US dollar. And then the US dollar will consolidate Bitcoin. More and more Bitcoin will be consolidated. And most people will be playing in the derivative instrument of the US dollar, which is still an inflationary monetary system. It has to extract from people. So it can't allow, and because most people are so used to that, then they will trust the ETF. Then they will trust other companies, and it'll centralize further and further. And at some point, that inflationary system has to attack the deflationary one. So if you're only using a US dollar, if you only think Bitcoin is a store of value in US dollars, which is ludicrous, really, right? Then you're actually contributing to an attack that has to come. Because you're still in the fiat system. You're just trying to get rich. You're still in the zero-sum game. You're just trying to get richer within it. Mm-hmm. When you're truly in Bitcoin, and we truly understand, free market is a choice to provide more value to anybody. Why do you think I'm on Nostr? Why do you think if you come on Nostr, I'll send you a zap on Nostr? Is because it is an expression of value that you choose. And if you use a currency that is native to the global free market, then you're contributing to the global free market.
Yeah, you have to be a part of the solution, or else you're part of the problem.
Exactly. So that would be, if this is a first time podcast for people that are just seeing this, that's going to stretch their brain like really, like that's a hard thing to really get, because they're going to, the first time they hear, wait, the natural state of the free market is deflation, they won't grab it right away. They'll have no neurons to hang that onto, right? There's just like because all their history, all their books, everything they've ever read is out of this other system. And they haven't asked even a simple question of, why is inflation required? Like, so can anybody give me an answer to that? Because the only place inflation comes from is from manipulating money. So instead of saying, or you could say, instead of manipulating money, you could say stealing money from some to give to others. So if the only place that the inflation comes from is stealing money from some to give others, or manipulation of money, then change a different question. Instead of why is inflation required, say, why is manipulation of money required? Why is theft required in a monetary system for us to trade? And it seems ludicrous. Seems absolutely ludicrous. But again, the first time you'd heard that because you're so used to this other system, it like you do, like when you said you were walking, it'll take your breath away. Is that true? And you know it's true. That means everything you do in this other system makes it stronger.
You said that almost like centralization, even among individual Bitcoiners who are hanging on to it as a store of value and not using it as a medium of exchange, is a threat to that decentralization. But we do believe over time, that it's going to be okay, right? And you do too. But what's that?
So just because I want to hear that, but I probably didn't finish that. So why would I not worry about that?
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
So that's a very real risk, right? But why would I not worry about that? Because when you understand that you can, do you guys run nodes right now?
We do not.
Okay. So you have a couple takeaways to run a node it's very simple to run a node. And one of the reasons that one of the things that keeps us decentralized and secure is the nodes, and then more so the economic nodes that are built on top of that are all protecting the network. That's a consensus mechanism. Costs you almost nothing to run a node. I run two. So me, or my node as a proxy, is auditing this thing every 10 minutes. Right. And any change my node has to be negotiated with. So let's say you have centralized coin, US coin, and then that coin comes and says, we're changing the rules. Here's what it's going to look like. What do you think my node will say?
Nope.
And what you realize is the people that are in the centralization, the people that are doing the centralization, the people that are trusting US coin or ETFs and everything else, they're very unlikely to run nodes because they trust an institution. They trust somebody else to do the work. Who is running nodes? Who is running economic nodes? It's all the people that have gone down this deep rabbit hole, and they're never going back. Right. So the deeper you go down here, what you understand is, when I say we are Bitcoin, we literally are Bitcoin. We are the things and the number of people I know globally hidden behind Tor browsers and running nodes, and you can't attack that. So yes, I'm a public figure. Somebody could take to kill me. My nodes could go down, but it doesn't stop this at all from happening. And those nodes. That's also why some people think this is inside the debate and the fights. That's why the fights are so real, and that's why changes to the Bitcoin protocol are so slow, because those nodes, like mine, I don't even get involved in the fights until it would actually create any sort of threat, any sort of lurking threat. I don't even say anything, but you have this like mechanism that people know the same thing I'm saying, and they're living in a world that looks totally different than the world that's being centralized, and they are not going back. So when you realize that, and you realize that any single person can add their voice to the honest system, and it gets better by all of our interacting with it and adding their voice to the honest system, you realize that we are Bitcoin and it's not going to break.
So in the early phases of Bitcoin that we're obviously in right now still, the community members, if you will, who opt in as early adopters are self-selecting for all the right reasons, which means that those reasons strengthen today and have an opportunity to take hold and harden before it gets out of our grasp, in other words.
So we always keep it that way. We can change anything in the network anytime, but we have to agree on the changes to the network. So that would be the second risk. At some point, quantum computers, could they actually produce an attack? Yes, possibly, if you believe. Now, not guaranteed. Maybe quantum doesn't ever get there. Maybe there's no, but if you believe that quantum can solve, it's really the noise problem, the signal problem, and you could get these qubits together and enough of them to eventually solve quantum, then the network needs to be post-quantum resistant. So what will happen through that process is those nodes will vote to upgrade the network to post-quantum resistance, because otherwise it would fail. So it's just a process that we are Bitcoin, right? And you're constantly looking for these attacks. You're constantly emerging. And then just like any network, there's some people that you would trust more, right? Some people that through that proof of work, some people that through that same proof of work have tried to destroy Bitcoin multiple times. And they get ejected, and that ejection from the system, every single person that's tried to cheat Bitcoin has failed miserably. Even the other coins, if they just owned Bitcoin and didn't create the other coins, they'd have far more wealth today than all of the noise, all of the work they ever did. So when I say it's a cooperative network, everybody gets better in it, and all of the cheaters keep on failing. We've never had another system like it ever. I wrote a post on Nostr that actually explains this from a human being centrist standpoint, what it looks like, and kind of in time. If you understand game theory, I don't know how many people would understand game theory deeply on your podcast, but if you look up game theory, what it looks like and how we act in it. In game theory, if you juiced if you created payoff matrices in game theory and that said you will not get caught, there's no way anybody will catch you, so you could cheat and you won't get caught, and then you added an incentive that you're going to make 200,000, 500,000, a million, 10 million, a billion, at some sort of number there as you kept on going up. By the way, you can see this on Squid Games. You can see this on all of the like TV shows made about it. And some sort of number there, 97.5% of humans will cheat if they wouldn't get caught. And when I say cheat, I'm talking about in game theory. I'm not saying they think they're cheaters. What they would tell you is that this: I need to do it for my family. I need to do it for this. I need to do it for that. I need to do it before somebody else does it to me. Right. And the world's always looked like this. So what would money look like? Because if you could steal a little bit of money from people slowly, it would be a game that you wouldn't get caught. Right. Because everybody would think that was the normal game. It would also mean if you had more people on your system, you would extract more, so the numbers would be really high. So, but 2.5% of people is a huge number. And so, but what happened, I think, throughout history, even if you look at the alternative universe that we've lived in, I think what the 2.5% of people, essentially what it's saying is they can't be bought for anything. Nothing will buy them. Their internal locus of control, their internal, what it would say about themselves, not anyone else, what it would say about themselves forces them to a spot that they won't cheat. Funny enough, throughout history, I think what you see through some of the great religions, some of the Gandhi, where it works, is you actually see that. You see the 2.5%. And why we celebrate them long after their death is because it's so rare. And it's speaking to our higher purpose, speaking to who we want to be but can't be. We fall into this trap. We go along with where most people are. So what bit did Bitcoin change? Those 2.5% of people aggregate to Bitcoin, and they produce it, and they can't be, and they're not going to cheat. And so what you have to expect, though, in the world that we're moving through is 97% of people, 97.5% of your friends will. Right? At some point, they will tell themselves, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell everybody I'm doing this, but I'm doing this opposite thing. And so the question isn't what everyone else will do; it's what you will do. But what I see in the people that I know in this space and in those nodes and the people that are building in this space, it's those people. They're not going back, and that produces and that produces entirely a different change in society's fabric. Because I don't think most people want to cheat. They're just scared if they don't do it first, somebody else will, and they'll be. And so when I've said many times, but this protocol inscribes the best in us for the best for us. So that's what I mean by imposing a new discipline that can't be cheated. Tons of people are going to try. It's just human nature, but they'll all fail.
It does feel like a great big filter for the world, and you smush everything through the pinch point of Bitcoin, and it just comes out glorious on the other side. It just cleans it all up.
It's so beautiful, but again, for the first people, when you're first doing it, it sounds too good to be true. It sounds like like for people watching this, if they're hearing this right now, that's why it almost seems like a religion. These people are crazy. There's no way the world looks like this, right? And the more the deeper you are on here, sometimes you can't imagine their view anymore because you have a completely different view. And sometimes in Bitcoin, people talk down at those people because they're in such a different spot today. That's a transition, and it's a transition in each of us. I didn't know a lot of the things I'm saying today 8-10 years ago. So if somebody came to me at Bitcoin at that time and was this going to change the world, and how powerful this was, I might have been the same as some people entering Bitcoin today. I might have gone like that's crazy, right? Until I learned and went deeper into that process.
All right.
What a chat.
Oh my goodness. There's like 8, 9, 11, 200 different things that I want to chat about with Jeff.
11,200.
But
I love that.
Bitcoin is so dang big and is so dang transformational and has so many layers that we'll never fit it all into one chat about sats. So we ask each of our guests, Jeff, if they'd be willing to come back on in 9 months and give us an update on their Bitcoin baby. Would you be willing to do that for us?
You bet.
Let's go.
Nice.
And I can't wait too, because I think all of our Satsillionaires are going to blow up the comment section about like what they want to hear more about.
Yeah.
And we'll like just go attack it the next time Jeff is on the show.
Yes, we're consumer led.
So let's recap our conversation here with Jeff today.
Oh.
He got his start in that tech entrepreneur space, and I think over time tech investor space as well. And around 2017 or so is when it sounds like Jeff started to get some of his own Bitcoin, but it was more like a curio at that time for him, more like a, hey, let's see where this is going to kind of go. I'm in that tech space. I'm steeped in that tech space. This looks like some neat tech. But as Bitcoin does, you start stacking them sats, and you might not know it, but you're stepping down the rabbit hole. Here we go, turning each one of us into a little Alice here, tumbling down, correct? And what Jeff, and I feel like Jeff's gone like, I mean, this dude, people have gone down some rabbit holes. This dude has gone so far down the rabbit hole, he's like back around the other side. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like looking at the entrance to the rabbit hole again, like, whoa, I'm all the way back here. And like he goes again. And like each time he's like getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
He knows all the pit stops, all the places to stay, and get a good deal while you're down there.
He's going down a 4-dimensional rabbit hole, that includes space and time. We don't even know where Jeff is.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin has helped Jeff to see so many things that we want for our satillionaires. And yes, we cannot be toxic Bitcoin maxis on this show.
Never.
And we're not going to be crypto bros either.
No.
We are Bitcoin gentlemen, and we're building the world's biggest Bitcoin welcome center where someone can come in and they can say, hey, the only thing I have eyes for right now is this idea that Bitcoin is a really great asset. It's a really nice investment. It's outperforming others. And we're like, hey, look, well, then why don't you just get yourself a little bit, okay? Because they're not ready for Bitcoin as freedom. They're not ready for Bitcoin, imposes the first. They're not ready. But we want them to start stacking, because what happens? Well, over time, like Jeff, you learn some really world-shattering / reforming things, like the natural state of the free market is deflationary.
Yeah.
It used to cost $600 a minute to call the United Kingdom from the United States. It doesn't anymore. And, things used to be terribly expensive, and they aren't anymore. But some things are. Some things are getting more and more expensive, even though they should be getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Why? Because you're in this system that must inflate in order to survive. You're in this zero-sum space. You have to fight and kill and compete. But with Bitcoin, you don't, because even as you compete with one another to provide the greatest possible value inside the world of Bitcoin, you're helping each other get better. If I try something and you try something and yours ends up being better than mine, well, okay, I'm going to use yours and I'm going to benefit from that, and it's all going to be great. Plus, by the way, you learn, and this is new for me right here on the show. This is, I like Jeff is like that needle, and it's going right into the back of my neck.
Ugh.
Matrix style, dude. He's plugging me in, or maybe he's actually pulling the cord out. I'm coming out of the Matrix. I don't know.
Gross.
But this idea that ultimately any amount of Bitcoin means infinite purchasing power. Oh my gosh. I knew that after realizing that the natural state is deflationary, I needed to get enough Bitcoin possible for me and my kids and my grandkids. But what Jeff is saying is that your Bitcoin represents purchasing power, not dollars. And so each Bitcoin is worth 1/21 millionth of the world's purchasing power. And since the natural state is deflationary and everything gets cheaper and cheaper and better and more advanced, then if you can hang on to your sats long enough, you can eventually buy an infinite share of the world's economy, right? Over time. Incredible.
But not just hang on to for dear life.
Yes. Okay.
Recirculate and then repurchase. That sounds like a critical takeaway here for our satillionaires. You can't just hold it, because then that puts Bitcoin back in the centralization risk that we have to avoid.
Right. And nobody would think about putting US dollars into a savings account with the idea of never spending it ever.
No.
They have a savings, they've got a checking. It's all good, right? And so you can stack up some Bitcoin as a store of value for the future, but you should have some as a medium of exchange as well. And you should recognize that if we can build this this alternate system, right, then we can earn in Bitcoin and we can spend in Bitcoin and we can save in Bitcoin and we can Bitcoin in Bitcoin. And everybody can Bitcoin to Bitcoin to Bitcoin because the Bitcoin's going to be Bitcoining. Everybody's going to love it. You know what I mean? Like, come on now, get you some old Bitcoin here. Just get some.
Little sats. That's all it takes.
And I guess one more thing I want to treat before we try some a brand new thing here today on the show.
Ooh.
Is this concept of a protocol takes all. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So yes, in Bitcoin, inside Bitcoin, everyone can cooperate while competing and making everything better all the time for everyone. But Bitcoin as a protocol versus other protocols, the way protocols work is one of them wins. The TCP IP, that is how we work currently, right? There's not, and there were other ones that were competing at the time, but they're not here anymore. They were almost like the cryptocurrencies to TCP IP's Bitcoin. And all these other cryptocurrencies that are competing, they're going to lose to Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So Bitcoin as a protocol takes all. And I'm going to be surfing the web. I'm going to be watching sat chats on the Bitcoin internet. Like I gotta figure that one out.
Well, you're just going to have to slowly hit us with sats every second that comes by. You just zap us a little sat.
Yeah. Like that's like how you subscribe is by kind of like zapping sats as you watch.
Love that.
Amazing.
You just so you know, some of this technology already exists and people are doing it. Fountain right now does exactly what you're saying for podcasts, and a bunch of that is already native on Nostr too.
Yeah, wow. and the CEO of Sovereign.io, Brandon, told us that he listens to our show on Fountain because of our RSS feed, and I'm like, well, dang, I need to get us set up so that if anybody wants to zap us sats on that platform, they can, because it's just going there already.
Well, yeah. I mean, dynamic pricing is absolutely the wave. It's already here. I mean, wave of the fucher.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we got to run a node, and we know from Simple Steve and now from Jeff, we need a node. We need a Nostr. We need to get on Fountain.
We're going to take care of that.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, Jeff, is we are going to make you an offer. Okay. But before we do, really an offer, it's a gift. You get to choose your choice of one of two gifts. One of them's not a gift. It's a stinky old piece of, but anyways, we're going to, before we do that, we're going to do something real special here in honor of Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you want to take that one away, or you want me to rip on this one?
Well, I'll take it. So Jeff is we believe everyone's equal here on Sat Chats.
Yes.
Bitcoin
is the equalizer.
Okay. However, Jeff has been in the game and has been just a wealth of knowledge that he's been sharing with the rest of the world so graciously for such a long time. Mm-hmm. And then today we also realized, well, wait a second, Jeff's episode is going to air on Cinco de Mayo. Well, guess what?
Whoa.
Okay. Ithaca Hummus is not just a hummus company.
Whoa.
We also make salsa. Okay.
Salsa.
So instead of tasting hummus, we are going to taste some salsa here today in Jeff's honor. And I also will just mention, for those who don't know, Ithaca Hummus is our founding sponsor here on Sat Chats.
Yep.
It costs money to do what we do, and we love what we do. But right now, Ithaca Hummus is powering all of that, and we're very grateful to them. So,
but we got this here as well.
This is Vista Hermosa. We hold chip and cracker tryouts each day on the show here, Jeff.
Yeah. We're looking for the official chip of Sat Chats, you see.
I love it.
It hasn't landed yet, but we're going to wear it like a loose garment.
Yeah.
It'll come when it comes. So,
Some Bitcoiner who owns a chip or cracker company is going to go, yep, okay, yes, you guys,
Yeah.
you guys.
well, we don't want to sell. We want to be bought. You know, I hate selling, but I love it when people just buy.
So we got some Ithaca salsa here. This is the first time a non-hummus product has appeared in our tasting sequence.
Yep.
This is the medium salsa. It's got some good chunk to it. It also has a little bit of the wateriness that comes like when you go to like a Mexican restaurant and you know it's like done well.
Yeah, we
You know, it's not like chunky, like none of that.
No, it's not big chunks. It's little like diced pieces with. We nailed this product.
All
period.
right.
Taste, texture, all of it. So let's try it.
Let's give it a crunch. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
You tell me. I mean,
So
I made it. So
that tastes like I want Tex-Mex restaurant salsa to taste like.
this is perfect every time.
But it's like a high fidelity version of that. The tomato flavor comes first, then some cilantro and some saltiness.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some onion in there, but my taste buds aren't good.
There are onions.
And then there's like a little bit of heat on the medium.
Jalapeno.
That's yummy in my tummy.
So good.
Let's make Jeff his offer here so that he can help with that decentralization as well.
All right, Jeff. So we believe in value for value here on the Sat Chats show. And so we are going to give you your offer of a gift from us is a choice between $50 in US bucks.
US coin, as
Fiat,
Jeff said.
yeah,
US
coin.
coin.
Whatever. Or $50 in Bitcoin. Got the Clark Moody dashboard pulled up right behind me here. I can see that the exchange rate for one Bitcoin right now is $94,930, which translates to 1,053 sats per dollar. And so I'll multiply that by 50 to get 52,650 sats or $50.
I love it, but can I get you to do this? Can I get you to donate it to OpenSats?
Done.
Done.
Done and done.
Donation to OpenSats is done.
And we'll send you the receipt. We love that.
it.
Thank you, Jeff.
52,650 sats. For the purposes of this show and our scoreboard, we are going to declare that Jeff Booth, in fact, stacked the sats and then sent them to OpenSats, right? So that I can get my win over here, which is 57 who have stacked the sats. We've got 5 who need a little bit more time.
Need time. That's
And
all.
man, when they come back on the show, we're going to crack open their head like a walnut and be like, guess what? Any amount of Bitcoin is infinite money for the future. And you're going to be surfing the internet on your Bitcoin. So what a great episode. We can't wait for you to come back on. There's so much there, right? And I want to know who first introduced Jeff to Bitcoin, because you talked about doing it in 2017 there. I want to get into that. I want to learn all of it.